All right, everyone. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I appreciate the last minute response to the notification that we're going live. I have apologized a number of times and will again for our unpredictable schedule on live streams. One of my main priorities once we hit the off season will be to release a live stream schedule. So that will be the schedule that we will adhere to each and every week for live streams. And then, of course, if we have late breaking news, as we did a few weeks ago with Willie Taggart being fired by Florida State, we will at times fire up the live stream and go live with late breaking news analysis. We got 16 on the line, so I appreciate it. And 23 comments already, so I will get to those. One of the main reasons why I wanted to jump online was to get you caught up on a conference championship weekend. I just recorded a segment on the MAC championship game, the American championship game, and the Pac-12 championship game. Those will be released very soon. We have hit both sides of the Big Ten championship game, Ohio State, Wisconsin. We have talked Clemson this week. We will have more Clemson material coming your way. Virginia, I need a Virginia guest. I need an LSU guest. I need a Utah guest. If you have any guests out there, any writers that you listen to or read on a regular basis, please send those names my way. I'm trying to track down the Utah side of the Pac-12 championship game, Virginia for the ACC, and of course LSU from the SEC. We did talk Georgia football and prepping you for the SEC title game, and we have hit the Oklahoma side of the Big 12, so I guess I also need to speak with Baylor. And so if there are any Baylor contributors out there potentially that could add to our content here, we would be much appreciative of that. 38 comments. I will get to them in just a second. My priority, though, was to respond to a number of videos that I posted earlier this week that have received quite the attention. We looked at Michigan football following another debacle at the hands of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And that gained a ton of response. So I would like to respond to that. I had my thoughts on the Miami football program in light of a 6-6 season, culminating with losses to Duke, who was 4-7, and FIU, which of course plays in the Conference USA, and a number of debacles that could be termed losses for Miami this particular season. My thoughts on the Miami program and the state of the program, not just this season, but last season, the season, going back 15 years. Had thoughts on that, and a lot of people responded. I was very impressed. I got to say, I was very, very impressed. I cannot overstate this. I was impressed with the response from the Miami fandom. The Miami fan base basically took it and said, Mark, you are speaking the truth. These are all facts. It puts it in perspective in regards to what Miami football is right now and what it's been for the last 13 or 14 years. Thank you very much. So I have got to call out the Miami fan base for being almost top to bottom, taking it in a very, very mature and a classy way, what I had to say about Miami football. Mark Rogers, TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, me and you try to tell Miami fans that that was going to happen. You remember I was saying in the beginning of the year that they were going to struggle. But enough about Miami. They're not playing anymore. To the bowl season. I know that's y'all top seller, but, you know.
My top seller? My top seller? No. People think it's my top seller. Check out my Ohio State videos, my Michigan videos get many more views than Miami. And I would say, by my Ohio State Michigan postgame did 33,000 views. And that's not by itself. I just released a Michigan video yesterday that's got 13,000 views. Miami doesn't do anything close to that. Yes. I appreciate the Miami fans that watch me. Certainly, I'm not discounting that. What's on your mind, DeAndre?
Oh, no, man, I called to help Pigskin and Pete out on his argument.
Okay.
With Dabo. I didn't know you was going to be on tonight, man. I agree with some of your viewpoints. I'm sure you saw my video on the reply to yours. And I feel what you're saying. And you made the point, too, that Clemson is not responsible for everybody else's schedule. And Dabo, in a way, I think is just taking up for his program. And I pointed out in my video that Joe Clapp pointed this out maybe a year or two ago, that the committee is responsible for making up everybody's resume because of who they put into the top 25. Now, don't get me wrong what I'm about to say. I understand Wake Forest lost to Syracuse and lost a couple other games. Virginia Tech, I think they got blown out 36-17. But I know we can't guess because they never played on the team together. They have played on the field against each other. But I see Oklahoma State is at number 25. And my question was on my video, who has Oklahoma State beat compared to what Wake Forest has done this year when it was healthy? Now, I know injuries, everybody has injuries throughout the year. But I'm just asking that question. And I know another guy, he made videos, and you do a way better job than him, but he did point out, and he's a Clemson fan, he said, well, if you go watch Alabama when they're playing this year, they got so many injuries. Clemson maybe don't have to worry about that nutrition compared to what Alabama and some of the other teams go through. And I can agree with that. But I was just saying that, George Clapp did point out sometimes these committees, the rankings don't make any sense on what they be doing, and it makes the ACC look worse than what it is. It could make a conference look worse than what it is, or a team look worse than it is because they don't rank certain teams. And what is their logic from 7 to 25? I see you waving your hands.
Well, DeAndre, so much of what you have to say, and certainly leave the link of your video in the live chat for anybody who wants to go back and watch your video. I did not have a chance to look at it, but just to let everyone know what DeAndre is referring to is Dabo Swinney made comments after the South Carolina game basically saying that he believes that his team is being disrespected and that if they lost a game that they would drop out of the top 20, and he went on and on from there. You would have to go online and check out the comments. And he somewhat defended the ACC as being a strong conference and saying that teams like Wake Forest, Virginia Tech are good teams, and they would go 9-3 and 8-4 in other conferences. But then he kind of pulled back and said, but it's not our responsibility to defend the ACC or put up for the ACC. I'm responsible for my team and my program. So I agree with that, and I understand he's in a difficult place, DeAndre, because he is only responsible for his team and his program. The ACC could have the 13 worst teams in America in the other 13 spots, and he can't do anything about that. At the same time, we all know that coaches, especially long-standing coaches at a particular program, we see it every offseason when they go to the various conference media days. They stand up for their conference. They take pride in their conference. They want to defend the football that's played in their conference because they have conference pride, number one. Number two, it makes them look better knowing that the teams around them are quality teams. So he did stand up for the ACC, and I fully respect him for that. I think he should stand up for his conference, and he does to a certain degree, but then also steps back to say, we're not responsible, though. I'm going to defend the play in the conference as being quality football, but I'm also going to say I'm not responsible for those other teams. But the committee...
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but I think where he comes in at, just like a couple of years ago when he went to Colin Cowherd, when they beat him with when they beat Alabama with Deshaun Watson, he was like, "Oh, Clemson's no good." And I think that year Clemson probably played the hardest schedule in the nation. I'm not gonna say that for sure, but it's like, yo, you didn't see them play. Or like Paul Feinbaum, everybody knows Paul Feinbaum, the SEC homer. He makes up all these excuses when Georgia loses or when Alabama loses to Clemson. And I think that's who Dabo Swinney be going back at. I don't think, like I heard you say, well, say who? Well, we know who he's talking about. He's talking about Paul Firebaum when he makes these comments. It's going to be Paul Firebaum that blows his SEC horn. And I think what I'm trying to say is, if you look at what Joe Clacker was saying, the committee's on ESPN, and they're tied into it. And it makes it look bad because Paul Firebaum works for ESPN, and all he does is blow the SEC horn and always come up with these excuses for the SEC. I get what you're saying, but I think that's where Dabo was coming from, and that's how Clemson fans look at it.
Okay, so to complete my statements and my perspective start to finish, because a lot of people jumped on me trying to explain to me why Dabo was saying what he was saying and who he was speaking to, meaning that he's trying to motivate his team and trying to speak to his team through the media. Okay, I'm not an idiot. I understand what's going on. I understand what Dabo Swinney's doing. He's using the media to speak to his team. Any smart coach, not every coach out there, but every media savvy coach, and Dabo Swinney is certainly one of them, knows how to get his point across. And so he's either speaking, yes, to the fan base, the media, but the two most important groups of people on this planet to Dabo Swinney, besides his family, of course, number one would be his current players, and number two would be the recruits that he's chasing. Those are the two most important groups of players. So he would be speaking to them first and foremost. I totally understand that. I don't need people out there to explain to me what Dabo Swinney's doing. I understand what he's doing, but the point I was making is that I think he's whining. I think he's whining about being disrespected, and I understand that as long as he wants to use the media as a platform to get through to his players, to give them incentive and fire to blow out Virginia and go forth from there, that's fine that he wants to do that. But since he's using the media as a public forum, I have every right to call him out on any illogic or inaccuracies that I think he has in making his claims. And I think there's a lot of it there. So I've got every right, as does everybody else, to call him out. If he wants to talk to his players and not receive criticism for what he has to say, then he should do that in the locker room.
Right. And like I said, as you know, a lot of my family went to Clemson back in the 80s and played on with that school with Danny Ford, with that team with Danny Ford that won a national championship. You know, even Danny Ford, after they won the national championship versus Nebraska, and Danny Ford won his conference, was like ACC number one. So I don't think the ACC's ever got credit for being a good conference. And they are no more known for basketball, just like Kentucky. Kentucky basketball can SEC conference, Kentucky and everybody else. So I guess you could say the same thing for when Clemson and Florida State had their runs. It's always been Clemson and Florida State, and then everybody else. So I guess you're right. I mean, like I said, you know, Dabo, he's Dabo. He's gonna keep on doing. Ain't nothing none of us can do about it. But we can sit up and talk and laugh about it all day.
And you know how this works, DeAndre. I thought that I was very clear in number one saying that I enjoy Dabo Swinney. I think he's a first-class individual. There is no way that anyone should criticize what he's done with that football program. That's beyond laughable for anybody to criticize. So I would be the last person on earth to criticize his coaching. He's done a remarkable job with the program. But even beyond that, I think he's a class individual. I think he's done a great job of being a role model for his kids and future players, and he's built a tremendous program from a culture standpoint and a family atmosphere, and he's an outstanding guy in addition to being a great football coach. But I just think he was whining and complaining and making a bunch of assumptions that he knows aren't true. They're not disrespected.
You know he's not going to drop down to 20 years. I mean, you go back and look at my video, and that's why I was telling people on my video when they're responding to yours. I said it before you and Pete put out y'all video, like y'all put out two separate videos. I said it before, and I like, did anybody hear Dabo's rant? He was kind of crazy. I was like dropping the Twitter just because you lose to South Carolina and Georgia, and they trying to find a way. I thought it was funny too, man. I just thought he was just talking noise. I mean, this is just hilarious, man. But no, I said Dabo, man. That's all you can say.
Absolutely,
and, man. Man, I'll give other people a chance to call in. I've been listening to the show. But, yeah, I see Clemson easy path to the playoffs. Ain't nobody had an easy way to the playoffs, man. They're funny, but they beat everybody by 100 points when they get in there. All right, man. Have a great day.
All right, DeAndre. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline.
All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
What's up, Marcus? JT.
JT, what's going on, man?
Nothing, man. Long time no talk, man. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. What's been going on?
So, over the last couple of days, I've been getting a lot of criticism and a lot of hate for defending Mike Leach and saying why Mike Leach deserves to get one of those SEC jobs. And here's why. So, I've been telling everybody says Mike Leach hasn't won anything, blah, blah, blah. So I'm saying this. So I'm saying, so you guys say Mike Leach hasn't won anything, but you guys want to hire these group of 5 coaches, although Mike Leach has a 61% win percentage in 2 Power 5 conferences at Texas Tech and Washington State.
Hang on, JT. I will let you finish, obviously, but I need to clarify something. When you say you guys, are you talking about me?
I'm just talking about the Mike Leach haters in general.
Okay. You're not specifically talking about me, correct?
No, I wasn't talking about
Okay, because I've been very complimentary of Mike Leach's work because I've specifically said on a number of broadcasts and videos that Texas Tech prior to Mike Leach was not winning. Mike Leach won 65% of his games at Texas Tech. He left, and Cliff Kingsbury, who was able to parlay it into an NFL job, went 18-30 in the Big 12. Went 18-30, could barely win not even 40% of his games in the Big 12, and Mike Leach won 65% of his games. And what's astounding is he finished ranked in the top 25 5 of his last 6 years at Texas Tech. Who in the world has done that since or before that at Texas Tech? Proceed.
Yeah, man. Like I agree, man. Like I've been trying to tell people this for some reason. I don't know why. People just don't want Mike Leach in it. Well, I want Mike Leach in the SEC. I mean, I love this post-con. I just want to see him in the SEC. But for people to say he doesn't deserve a job in the SEC is just insane. Then people try to say, oh, he doesn't play defense. And I keep on telling people, I was like, the SEC is changing. Last time I checked, Alabama and LSU. What was LSU and all Alabama known for before Tua got there and things like that? Smash mouth football. They was a run first most of the time. They always had talent. But then they changed. Alabama changed their offense. Now their offense is similar to like a high-scoring, high-octane offense with less defense. And anytime you change your offense, most of the time your offense scores a lot faster. Of course, you're going to sacrifice a little bit of defense because your defense is going to have a lot more snaps and things like that. And I've been telling people, I was like, have you guys seen Auburn, Alabama? Have you guys not seen Alabama and LSU? I don't know what people are watching, but the SEC is changing. This isn't the same SEC from a couple of years ago when you had to play, well, you still do have to play some kind of defense, but this isn't the SEC anymore with low-scoring offenses. And eventually, your offense has to be able to score 30 points because smash-mouth football doesn't win championships anymore. I mean, look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin can never get over the hump because their offense, they're just too aligned on smash-mouth football, and they can't score enough points. They're not going to beat Ohio State because they can't score enough points. Even with an injured Justin Fields, they're still not even going to be able to score enough points. And Georgia probably can't even beat LSU because Georgia they're already missing 2 of their best receivers, one out for one half. And plus, they really don't have that consistent of a high-scoring offense. So Mike Leach and the SEC, with this offense, I think an Ole Miss or Arkansas could really use Mike Leach. And that offense, Mike Leach with some blue-chip talent, especially at Arkansas, Mark. I'm pretty sure you follow Arkansas a lot more than me, but their receivers are good. They got like 4 or 5-star receivers on their roster. So, I mean, Mike Leach, I think, to me, deserves a head coaching job at Missouri, Ole Miss, Arkansas. Definitely over Lane Kiffin. Like, people want to hire Lane Kiffin over Mike Leach. Lane Kiffin failed at USC. He actually dipped, and he failed at Tennessee, and he dipped from there. So I mean, like, I don't really understand the logic, and I mean, it really doesn't make no sense to me, Mark. I just had to vent my frustration there.
Well, the one point that I'll make in response to what you specifically said about Wisconsin, I think they're a different deal. So Wisconsin has actually done an extremely amazing job in being able to parlay those recruiting classes into teams that contend for conference championships. So when you're talking about LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, all the teams that you just mentioned, we're talking about rosters that are the top 3 to 5 in the nation. Wisconsin brings in recruiting classes that are ranked 35th, 40th, 30th, generally in that range. And so, number one, I don't believe that they've recruited and signed a quarterback who's able to play that style of football, number one. Number two, they don't have the talent to compete with those other teams athletically. They actually do an outstanding job of churning out top 10 to 15 teams year after year after year after year with classes that are ranked in the 30s and 40s. I don't think they can play that style of football with the athletes that they have.
Okay, but would you agree that Mike Leach, he definitely should at least get a Missouri or Ole Miss or the Arkansas job, because I think he has a better resume than most of the coaches that Arkansas is going after. Like, Mike Norvell did not get him. Gus Malzahn did. We already knew he's not coming there. Urban Meyer, no way he goes to Arkansas. So I mean, Mike Leach, I'm just trying to figure out why people do not want to hire Mike Leach. Like, is it because his media antics and things like that? Like, I mean, like, he will bring PR. He'll bring a lot of attention. I mean, that's what Arkansas needs. That's what Missouri and Ole Miss need. They need attention. Ole Miss probably needs some positive attention considering what happened a couple of years ago. But I mean, I'm just trying to figure out why so many people don't want Mike Leach to coach inside the SEC.
Mike Leach is not the most likable guy in the world. And when you bring him on board, you know that he's not going to be the most likable guy in regards to boosters and alumni and dealing with the media. So hiring a head coach on the Power 5 stage also involves the PR aspect of it. And some administrations probably aren't real comfortable with Mike Leach. Consider that the two places where he has been the most successful and the most recent have been programs that can't be extremely picky in choosing a head coach if they want to be successful in those conferences, talking about Texas Tech, competing against 5 or 6 other schools in the state of Texas and around the state of Texas that are going to have the upper hand in recruiting. And then also, of course, Washington State that has a dearth of football talent in the upper Northwest. So his style of offense and his ability to scheme and match up supersedes some of those talent deficiencies. And those programs have wanted to reach out to somebody like a Mike Leach to put them on the map, knowing that they couldn't get a top-level coach. But you go to some other programs that are more established and thinking about their brand and being a little bit more brand conscious, then they're thinking about Mike Leach and maybe thinking that he wouldn't be necessarily the best fit or the best representation of what they're trying to portray as a program. That's my thinking.
That's understandable. I agree. And I read something about he got hired. It was something about the Tennessee job. He was supposed to be the head coach. They agreed verbally. Then their athletics director went to go get the deal worked out officially, but then he got fired on his way to it's just a weird story. I read a couple of articles about it. It's just a weird story, but like I read that he interviewed for the Arkansas job, so I'm happy about. I just wanted to see Mike Leach in the SEC because I just want Mike Leach to prove everybody wrong that he can actually have success in the SEC. Now Arkansas it might take a couple of years because he'll have to play in the SEC west of Auburn, Alabama, and LSU and things like that. But I mean, I just want to see what Mike Leach can do in the SEC. I just really like his personality, man. It's just his press conferences are just wow. I mean, he's talking about weddings one day. It's just crazy, man. But thanks for having me on, Mark.
No doubt, JT. We appreciate the call. Enjoy the football this weekend.
Definitely will. You too, man.
It's our man, JT. Also heard from DeAndre. I want to give props to Nice Guy TV, which is DeAndre, and also Vernon Speaks Sports. And check out his channel right here on YouTube as he covers Auburn and the SEC. Vernon Speaks Sports with a contribution to the Super Chat as well. I need an LSU guest. I need a Utah guest. I need a Virginia guest and a Baylor guest. So please help me out on that. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Uh-oh. Hang on, McD. Give me 2 seconds here. I'm having a speaker issue. I need to call up the speaker. How am I going to do this? Yeah. McD, call back. My apologies. Again, we will correct this in the off season as well. I had everything in place, actually, as you guys have seen me do this probably 15 different times, but I'm going to do it one more time. Bought everything to clear up the call-in show. We'll work on that at some point. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's McD Sports 4. How are you doing?
McD, thanks for calling back. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. The reason why I'm calling is because I wanted to tell you what I think every Power 5 school coach opening. I want to tell you who is going to fill this job.
Okay, everybody out there, we got 73 on the line. We'll probably have a few thousand who will eventually watch this. Get pen and paper handy. McD is going to tell us who's going to be the next coach at all the Power 5 conference vacancies. Go.
Florida State, Lane Kiffin. That's who I think for Florida State. I think Ole Miss, Mike Norwell. Ole Miss and Memphis. It's only like an hour away from Memphis. Because he does a lot of Ole Miss fans in Memphis. He knows the area. I think he goes there. Missouri, the guy up at Central Michigan, McElrain. They're going to hire Jim McElrain from Central Michigan.
Okay.
And then Arkansas and Boston College, those two, whoever wants the job, because they should have probably not fired Steve Adazio at Boston College. In Arkansas, that's just a complete dumpster fire right now. So that's what I think.
So we've got, you didn't fill in the blanks at Arkansas and, at Boston College and where?
Arkansas, whoever wants the job.
Whoever wants the job. I want the job. I want the Arkansas head coaching job.
Okay. I mean, it's a major rebuild. I just don't think I think it's going to be tough to really get a coach there. And Boston College, I don't know what they were thinking of firing their coach. I mean, Boston College at best will win 8 games every year. And their coach, who they fired, he went 6-6, and he only did not make a bowl game 1 year in his tenure since 2013. I don't know what Boston College is thinking firing him. So,
yeah, this year BC went 6-6. Every other year they went 7-5. They had 1 3-9 season. So basically, they've gone 7-5 every year that he's been there, except for 2, where he's won 6-3. And if you know anything about college football recruiting, it's very difficult to recruit players to the Northeast. They have very few players in Massachusetts, and that's probably the best football playing state. It is the best football playing state in the Northeast, in New England, and they still don't have nearly enough players there to fill a Power 5 roster. So he's got to go all over the place and pick up the scraps to try to piece together a team that can compete in the ACC, and he's done rather well.
I mean, and everything you said was correct there. It's just that I really can't understand why they would decide to fire him. And but I'll also tell you the Rutgers and the Washington jobs for those vacancies already got filled. What do you think of Rutgers hiring Greg Schiano?
Well, it's definitely a football move because he hasn't done much off the field to clean up his name. He's got kind of a poor reputation based on a few things that he's done and a few stops. And that's one of the reasons why Tennessee decided not to hire him last offseason. But from a football standpoint, he has been the one coach that has been able to embrace Rutgers football, recruit in New Jersey, keep those players there, because if you know anything about high school football recruiting, New Jersey is pretty well stocked with high school football talent. So if you can keep some of them there and keep Wisconsin and Ohio State and Penn State and Virginia away from raiding your state, and even the Alabamas of the world go up into New Jersey and grab a couple players each year, if you can, I would think that their ceiling is getting to bowl games with 6 and 7 wins. That would be the best that they can hope for at Rutgers. And he might be able to do it.
You want to know my opinion about the hiring?
That's why you called, right?
Yeah. My opinion I'm just going to say my opinion. I love it as a Maryland fan. Greg Schiano can't beat any big teams. All those wins in the Big East were just to a bunch of sub-500 teams and teams that are below 500, like UConn, when South Florida was bad, when Buffalo was bad. I absolutely love it. He might go ahead and maybe catch a team off guard, hopefully not the Terps. So he might sneak up on a team or two. But at best, he signed an 8-year contract, so let's give him 5 years. He might make a bowl game once in those 5 years. He might. And if I had bet the house, I would say he doesn't make a bowl game and second return to Rutgers, because I think Rutgers is such a dumpster fire that you have teams like Maryland out recruiting them in that state. So I really think you might see some 4-8 season, maybe an occasional 5-7 season, but that's it.
Let's point out all the programs in the Power 5 over the past 2 or 3 years that have been quote unquote dumpster fires. Oregon State, Vanderbilt, Tennessee to a certain extent, Florida State, Georgia Tech currently, Rutgers, of course, probably the worst of the batch, Kansas. They come to the top of my head. Illinois. Let's also understand that all of those programs in the last 5 to 6 years have gone to bowl games. It's not difficult to go to a bowl game. So my guess is that Greg Schiano would be good enough at Rutgers within the next 5 years to get to a bowl game. Based on what he was able to accomplish there the first time, and based on the way they schedule at Rutgers, which would, if they get to a level in which they're just simply the worst or second worst team in the Big Ten, they should be able to go 3-0 in the non-conference, because they generally don't play anyone. And then all they have to do is go 3-6 in the Big Ten to make a bowl game.
That's the problem. And there's also the division they're in as well. I mean, you have to go up against Penn State and Ohio State and Michigan every year if you're Rutgers.
Sure.
So that's 3 losses. Maryland just whooped you 48-7. So that's probably 4 losses for the current future for the next year or two.
Absolutely. Absolutely, McD. Not to cut you off, but I know where you're headed with this. You're pointing out how bad Rutgers is right now, and I get it. They are deplorable, even beyond the scores. If anybody wants to look at box scores from this season, go to Rutgers' box scores against any decent teams, and it's incredible how inept they were on both sides of the ball, especially on offense. But let's understand, Oregon State is only 1 year removed from being historically one of the worst defenses in college football, and they went 4-5 in the Pac-12 this year. They suddenly became competitive in one season in the Pac-12, and they don't have anywhere close to the talent from a high school football standpoint in the Northwest than Greg Schiano will be able to recruit in both New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania and Maryland and in that area?
I'm telling you, I mean, I just think it's an uphill battle. I wish Rutgers the best. I mean, I don't like pooping on Rutgers, but I really don't see this working out. I think now I did say Rutgers needed a name, and they did go out and get a name. So I'm happy to see that. But I think they need someone that knows, like a big time recruiter. So that's why I said they should go out and get the guy at Bush Jones. I said they should go out and get Bush Jones because I know Bush Jones can recruit. I think they just need a recruiter more than anything. And I don't know if Greg Schiano can recruit because the last time he was at Rutgers, I mean, yes, he had a winning record and everything, but all those wins came against teams that were consistently below 500 or against SCS schools. I mean, he had maybe 2 or 3 occasional upsets, but that's it.
McD, give me a program in the Power 5, go through all the conferences that are at Rutgers level. And I'm not talking about right now Rutgers. I'm talking about 5 years ago Rutgers that was going 6-6, 7-5. Give me those teams. Give me those teams and tell me what winning teams they're beating, because they're not generally beating the good teams. The reason they're going 6-6 every year is because they're beating all the bad teams. So Rutgers was just falling in line with all those other programs. They beat the bad teams. That's why they go 6-6 and 7-5 every year. They beat up on the bad teams in the conference, and they win their non-conference games because they typically schedule lousy non-conference schedules. So I've played devil's advocate against you in most of this conversation. The one example I will give to back you up is that Randy Edsall at UConn achieved similar success to what Greg Schiano achieved at Rutgers. He had a lot of 7 and 8 win seasons at UConn when they were in the Big East. He left to go to Maryland. That was a better job. Power 5 conference, thought he would be able to accomplish something in Maryland. He did a horrible job. He goes back to UConn, and UConn is the proverbial dumpster fire with Randy Edsall back at UConn. And so we may see the same with Greg Schiano, where he is not able to clean up the mess at Rutgers. But I'm just saying that he is the one individual in the history of Rutgers football, modern football, that has won at Rutgers.
And the point you brought up is very good. It's actually like a very good point because I can see that comparison, Greg Schiano and that other guy, because I was choosing to bring up that other guy's name or mention him. But I see the comparison there. But I really don't think it's going to work out. I mean, he might maybe beat, like, I don't know, Indiana on a down year or something, or if he gets to Illinois, or maybe one of these Big Ten West schools that have a down year, that are having a down year, like a Northwestern or Nebraska. And he might even beat us if we have a down year, honestly. But he is not going to be Ohio State. He's going to be nowhere close to Ohio State. He's going to be nowhere close to Michigan. He's going to be nowhere close to Penn State. I think Michigan State will beat him every time. And I don't know who to get out the rest of the next few years, but I can tell you that Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa will beat him every year as of right now from what I'm seeing. Even though
McD, who is Rutgers going to hire that's going to go out and beat Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State?
Who they're going to hire? They got to find somebody. The goal is to win a national championship, not to sit there and just go 6-6 every year. So,
Greg
Schiano. That's how I look at it.
Greg Schiano's
That's how I look at it.
Greg Schiano's coaching record at Rutgers year by year. He was there for 11 seasons. He went 2-9, 1-11. Then here came the turnaround: 5-7, 4-7, 7-5, 11-2, 8-5, 8-5, 9-4, 4-8, 9-4. He went to bowl games 6 of his last 7 seasons.
Did he win a Big East championship?
That was in the Big East.
Did he win a Big East championship?
I don't believe so. I know that they came awfully close to winning a Big East championship in In 2002, he finished no. They went 11-2 in 06. They finished 12th in the country in the final AP poll that year.
Well, in my opinion, you hire a coach to win championships. So
Absolutely.
That's how I look at it. Like, I don't like. Here's my opinion, Mark. You're in the Power Five. You have a chance to make the playoffs every year because you're in the Power Five. So the goal should be to win a championship, not to just please the fans and make a bowl game maybe 2 times out of 5 years. So I personally just feel like it's a terrible hire on that standpoint. I wish the best for Rutgers. I know there's this one Rutgers guy out here, Tom Dude, that he's on your channel. He's on all the channels, and I hope Rutgers does well. But I think at best, Greg Schiano might go 2. I want to say 2-7. He might go. He might have 1 4-5 year in the Big Ten. That might be the best he'll be able to do. But Rutgers ain't going to win a championship with this hire. They should have went out and got Bush Jones. Bush Jones can recruit talent. And listen, is Bush Jones the best coach? No, but at least you'll look at Rutgers. And maybe if he could recruit talent in New Jersey, Bush Jones, if he was hired at Rutgers, you could look at him and the Rutgers team and say maybe they have a shot. But that's my opinion, and that's how I really feel. I just feel like if you're a Power 5 school, you need to be going for national championship and conference championships.
Again, the positives for me on Greg Schiano's fit at Rutgers outweigh the negatives. The negatives are the off-field baggage and the issues that he had there the first time that led to a firing after a 9-4 season. So it was all off the field. And it was some of the issues that Tennessee had an issue with in which they would not hire him and pull the trigger once they received all the backlash from the alumni and the students. On the positive side for Greg Schiano, again, he knows the recruiting territory at Rutgers. He knows the culture at Rutgers. He knows the campus. He knows the administration. He knows he's there. It's like Dan Mullen going back to Florida to a certain extent. On top of that, he knows the recruiting footprint. He has relationships with the high school football coaches in that region of the country. He has also coached in the NFL at various positions and also a NFL head coach at Tampa Bay, so he can get into the ear of high school players and their desire to get to the NFL. He's also been a high-level defensive coordinator at Ohio State, and again, he has already proven that he can win at Rutgers. Win championships? No, but win. There are very few programs in the country. There's about 25 to 30% of the programs in each conference have shown us the ability to compete seriously for a conference championship.
And every point you're making is mostly correct. I'm just looking at it as can this coach win a champion? Can he win a conference championship?
So you're telling me that Butch Jones could win a conference championship at Rutgers? That's what you're telling me.
He can recruit talent there, and if he could maybe pull his head out, his you know what, he could. I think he could because he can recruit. So
okay, McD. I am not the biggest Greg Schiano fan in the world. I am just giving you the points at which why they made the decision to bring him back. It's because, again, he has proven that he can win there. He understands the recruiting footprint. He knows the campus, the university, and the school. He's got a reputation there. He knows the region. He can recruit players. He's got NFL ties. He's been an NFL head coach. Players like to hear that they know that they've got a pipeline to the league and somebody can tell them how to get to the NFL. He's got all of that favoring him. And I don't know anybody that's going to go to Rutgers and there would have to be an act of God or lightning would have to strike from on high to get Rutgers past Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, and Penn State, let alone Indiana, who went 8-4 this year, to get to a Big Ten championship game to win the conference.
Just one little quick point. I think Indiana 8-4 is a fluke. I think they're going to come back down to their 6-6, 5-7. usual stuff for next year. But Mark, I've been on the line for 19 minutes. I'm going to hang up here because I don't feel like I don't think we should be talking about Rutgers when it's championship weekend.
I appreciate it, McD. Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking my call, and go Church. We are the best basketball team in the country.
McD talking some Rutgers football with conference championship weekend just days away. 72 on the line. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you guys are playing well in the live chat. I've not really seen anything that's been that egregious or horrible, but again, I am looking at comments from 11:29, which was 20 minutes ago. So hopefully, again, I expect all of you to self-police yourselves. And if I do see any defamatory comments regarding any personal attacks, then I will certainly remove those comments and get rid of those people. If it's just plain trash talking, then have at it. We got, of course, Ohio State fans, Luke and also J Jobs picking the Buckeyes to win big this weekend. David, 42-17. Theo would like to see an Alabama-Michigan bowl game. Cheryl, Buckeyes win 52-14. Nobody is predicting a close game. Getting even. Thank you so much for encouraging people to like the video. 49-10. My predictions, you can catch those at our Voice of College Football community. Just grab the link in the description section of any of the videos where it says Voice of College Football community. So I sell this from time to time, and this is the way I sell it. Forget my predictions. What we offered there is a live stream that's exclusive to you each and every week. So what I envision, and I didn't dream this up myself, it was by suggestion from about 20 to 25 of you who said, Mark, what we would love to do is to be able to come on your show like guests. So your guests come on here and talk college football with you. We would love to be able to do that as well. Got a call coming in. So what I have offered there on Patreon at our Voice of College Football community is an exclusive live stream per request. And so we've had about 8 requests, and I've been able to jump on the line with those particular viewers, and we've had a great college football discussion. I would love to do that on a weekly basis with tons of you. So that is the offer. Mark Rogers, TV, the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Yo, Mark, it's Deep Barat.
Deep Barat.
A long time.
The man, the myth, the legend. How are you?
Yeah, something like that. Not bad. It could be better, but this season's been pretty rough, as you're well aware from the perspective of Texas fans in general.
You've lost a game or two.
Yeah, man. I think it's more like lost 5, and probably going to go back to the Texas Bowl or the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, one or the other. But, such is life, kind of used to it this decade where, kind of overhyped in the off season and everyone's very excited. And we had reason to be excited too. We had a 10-win season, the previous year, and we won the Sugar Bowl against what would be considered like a top Georgia team at the time. And, one thing led to another, but hey, we got some good news. We fired both coordinators and, in the process of making a couple of good hires, which I would consider them good. Who's that guy? Graham Harrell, the offensive coordinator at USC. He's actually projected to be the favorite for Texas, and also the LSU offensive coordinator, but I think because of the job at LSU is very good, I don't think he's going to leave. But yeah, Graham Harrell, I think that would be an interesting hire. And we also fired our defensive coordinator. He was getting paid $2 million, and he wasn't really, achieving the results. So I actually thought maybe Tom Herman could be on the hot seat, but I think it would have been too early to put him on the hot seat. I think if he had 1 or 2 more seasons like this, then you could probably consider that. But yeah, man, Longhorn Nation was very, very upset this season, and probably that's why I took a little bit of a break for a few weeks and, just had to sink it in. But yeah, here I am, watching the playoffs again as a neutral. And, it's going to be interesting to see, man, who's going to win and who's not. But I think it's very clear that it's going to come down to Utah or Oklahoma in the end. I think that's what everyone's going to say. I just wanted to hear your perspective. Not only on Texas, but I guess later on, like, the last question is, who do you think would get in between Utah and Oklahoma?
My perspective on Texas is that I have not seen enough negative this season to really change my mind about Tom Herman or the direction of the Texas program. I think what we saw the previous 2 seasons is that we saw a program that was in bad shape when Tom Herman took it over in comparison to what we would expect Texas football to be. He's put together 2 amazing recruiting classes. They were hit with so many injuries on defense that it compromised, obviously, their play on that side of the ball this year. They underachieved in a number of areas elsewhere. The running game from the running back position still needs to be figured out. And they certainly underachieved this year. But 7-5, certainly, again, an underachievement, but not that far from being a 9 or 10 win team this year. So I don't think it's that alarming what happened to Texas. It's disappointing, but it's not alarming. Again, I think Tom Herman is a capable football coach, and he's put together top-notch recruiting classes. I don't know what they're projected to do right now in recruiting with the early signing day coming up in 2 weeks, but I have to expect it's going to be in the top 10 in the country. So they would need to turn in another 7-5 season for me, if I was calling the shots in the University of Texas administration, to have a sit down with Tom Herman prior to 2021 and to tell him that he needs to compete seriously for a championship.
Yeah, and interestingly, this was the worst this decade. Worst decade in the modern era. Like the worst. So it's kind of like Oklahoma in the 1990s. I'm sure if you're a little bit aware of that scenario where they had multiple losing seasons, or, multiple coaches getting fired, and so on and so forth. So, we're optimistic, but it's been rough. It's been very rough.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Anything else, Deep Barat?
Yeah.
Utah and Oregon, or Utah and Oklahoma. So here's my thought about this. I've addressed this a few times this week and over the past few weeks when it became pretty apparent outside of an upset that we were headed in this direction, although I did call for the Arizona State upset of Oregon, that the College Football Playoff Selection Committee showed us last week that they favor Utah slightly over Oklahoma. What I was interested to see in the unveiling of the rankings last night was to see whether they would vault Oklahoma over Utah based on the Sooners beating a number 21 team at the time by 18 points versus Utah beating a 5-win Colorado team. That didn't happen. They kept Utah ahead of Oklahoma, but they still have themselves in a place where they can stay flexible and be able to defend any decision that they make, because they've got Utah 1 spot ahead of Oklahoma, but Oklahoma is playing the team that they've ranked as the 7th best team in the country versus Utah playing the team that they have ranked, I believe, 12th in the country in Oregon. Therefore, what it should come down to is a beauty contest between the 2 conference champions.
I think it's going to be very controversial. Whoever
it's most likely going to be controversial unless one of them gets upset, namely Utah, because even if Baylor wins, consider the Baylor argument, and I know that they would have to be elevated from 7 beyond Utah, but they will have just defeated the number 6 team in the country, and having avenged the loss from earlier, much like Oklahoma did last year against Texas, Baylor could argue that they have better wins on their resume than Utah does.
Yeah, I think what's going to hurt Baylor is the out of conference. I mean, they just had a very weak schedule.
Absolutely, they did. They had a horrible schedule. But it's not like we're comparing Baylor's non-conference schedule to We're not comparing it to Stanford's out-of-conference schedule playing Notre Dame, UCF, and Northwestern. You know, the Utah played at BYU. That was their big non-conference game, and they played two nobodies. So it's not like they beat anybody either.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I just don't think Utah will be leapfrogged unless something. Happens. But
I'm telling you what
the argument is that Oklahoma is playing number 17 and vice versa, number 7 versus 6.
Sure.
So technically it's supposed to be a stronger conference championship game, right? But it's kind of like last year where, obviously Ohio State beat Michigan, but if Michigan had won that game, they would have still stayed ahead of Oklahoma, in my opinion, for the college football playoff. But, it happened that they lost to Purdue by a very large margin, and the argument goes that Oklahoma has more ranked wins and more quality wins. And the same thing with Baylor, if they do win, get the revenge. But here's the key thing. Utah has a better quality loss. USC is ranked. Kansas State is not ranked. I understand the Baylor argument, even though you can say that Baylor lost to Oklahoma, which lost to Kansas State, but we can't start using the transitive property, right? Because then it gets very confusing. But you get my point.
Oh, I get your point. I don't disagree with you. I'm just telling you how I would debate in that room. If I was in that room, I would bring a little perspective to it. If you look at Baylor's wins and you look at Utah wins, basically Baylor has better wins than Utah. Utah was more dominant than Baylor. Baylor skated by a number of times, and that's what the committee must be taking into consideration, which is fine. I certainly take that into consideration in making my rankings. But if you just look at wins, what is Utah if they beat Oregon, which of course this whole argument is based on Utah beating Oregon. After the Oregon win, what are Utah's next best wins?
Yeah, that's a good point.
They're Washington 7-5 and Arizona State 7-5. Those are their two best wins.
Yeah, that's true. But the quality loss argument is very important too.
It's even. The quality loss is basically even. USC's 8-4, Kansas State's 8-4. I can argue that.
True.
We could argue that all night. Who's better between Kansas State and USC? Yeah, they ranked them. Yes, they ranked them. The committee can defend its pick by ranking that team. They could have ranked. They had Kansas State ranked a few weeks ago.
But Kansas State is not ranked.
But they had Kansas State ranked just a few weeks ago, and they didn't have USC ranked. And really, USC has done little to gain that ranking, and Kansas State lost one game in the meantime to get knocked out of the rankings. I could argue that the USC and the Kansas State resumes are extremely close too. So whether USC's 23 and Kansas State's 26, I would love to walk into that room and argue with all of that committee because their rankings in some places don't make any sense. And this is where it doesn't make sense.
I mean, but here's the thing: is that like the AP poll also ranks them, right? So I understand that there's similar losses; both teams have identical records, but all of the polls, I believe, coaches also have USC ranked as well. All of the polls have USC ranked, but none of the polls have Kansas State ranked. Now, that could be the argument the committee uses to keep Utah ahead. And the other thing I want to just briefly mention before we kind of wrap this up is that Utah has been ahead of Oklahoma every single week, consistently in the college football playoff rankings this year. I don't know how much bearing that would have in the final rankings, but I would imagine that they would want to stay consistent with their decision, right?
Well, the point that I was originally making is that they've got the flexibility. They've put themselves in a place where they've got the flexibility to defend any decision that they make. Because if Utah and Oklahoma have similar championship game results and performances, and they opt to keep Utah ahead and put them in the playoff, then they can simply say, we had Utah ahead, they maintain their position. But if they want to elevate Oklahoma above Utah, they can simply say Oklahoma was razor close to Utah in the 6th position versus the 5 position, and they just beat the 7th ranked team in the country while Utah beat the 12th or 13th ranked team in the country. So we have now elevated Oklahoma based on having better wins. They can do whatever they want, is basically what I'm saying. They've put themselves in a position to be able to do whatever they want with Utah and Oklahoma and justify it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easily.
I think though that because Utah's been ahead every single week, I think it would take a lot, and I mean an awful lot, if Utah wins on Friday and they don't they justify them leading them out. Like it would take an awful lot.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just giving you the argument.
They've been ahead every single week.
I'm just giving you
every single week.
Absolutely. I'm just giving you the argument that any one of the three teams, if you want to hand me, let's say, give me two scenarios, either Utah wins decidedly and Oklahoma wins decidedly, or Utah wins decidedly and Baylor wins decidedly. You can give me any one of those three teams, and I can give you an argument as to why they should be selected for the playoff. That's why this system is screwed up, because we're going to be leaving out a team that has just as good a resume as the team that we're going to select. And that doesn't even take into account if Georgia beats LSU. It's going to be similar to last year.
In the BCS, they only selected two. They only selected two in the BCS. So it's like,
sure,
we went from 2 to 4. And I like it at 4. Like, I don't want it any more than 4. I understand what you're saying in terms of the controversy and there could be close, but I mean,
well, it's unfair.
Teams that probably
it's not fair. It's not a fair system. It's a farce. It's an idiotic system, just like last year.
I think it's better than the BCS.
Absolutely, it's better than the BCS, not because it's a smarter system, just because it affords two other teams that have earned the opportunity. It affords them the opportunity. That's the only thing that makes it better. It's not a better system inherently. It's just got two more spots, so it's better. Last year, we had the same situation. We had Oklahoma versus Ohio State. Oklahoma did not have the egregious loss and was given the opportunity based on its conference championship game to avenge its loss. Ohio State had better wins than Oklahoma. So who do you select? Well, they selected Oklahoma, and I didn't fault them for that. I didn't think that they made the wrong choice. I'm just saying that Ohio State had just as much of a right to go to the playoff as Oklahoma, but they only could select one of them. And I completely...
I think losing to Purdue by 30, I think that kind of...
Why should that matter? Whether you lose by 100 or you lose...
They lost to Purdue.
But they beat better teams. They beat better teams than Oklahoma beat.
True, but Oklahoma didn't they avenge their only loss to Texas last year?
Right? Yeah, but Ohio State beat better teams in a better conference than Oklahoma. Yeah, it's just like the year before. It's just like the year before. Alabama did not have the egregious loss that Ohio State had, but Ohio State beat better teams.
True, but they had 2 losses, right?
Sure, and they also won a conference championship and played in a conference championship game.
That is also true. I mean, it's a very complicated system. But at the end of the day, I think what college football fans got to decide is that would you rather see an 8-team or 16-team playoff, or like something like an NCAA tournament even, if you want to get too expansive, right? Or would you rather just have it, traditional? I mean, I know that you're a lot older than I am, so you've probably seen, people just get awarded national championships based on a vote. But I mean, I kind of like it, man. Like when we don't have a ton of games, like, the NFL, it's just too many games and it's too long of a season. I mean, I kind of get tuned in towards the end, but that's a very, very good point you bring up. I think college football fans have to decide that. But we're stuck with the system for at least until 2025, I believe. I don't know when the new TV contract is over, but I think that's kind of what we're stuck with. So I think, right now there's a lot of really pissed off Oklahoma fans, and there's a lot of, optimistic and also could be annoyed Utah fans. I mean, they've been at it on Twitter and social media and all various forums for days, weeks now, I mean, I would imagine. But recently it's been very heated because each side is kind of like, I deserve to get it. No, I deserve to get it. No, blah, 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 So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I hope the best team does get in. obviously, as a Texas fan, we don't want Oklahoma to get in, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And we're stuck with the system. Any thoughts on the system? Final remarks on the system.
On the system?
It's going to stay the same. Yeah. Like, what do you think is an optimal system compared to what we have right now?
The optimal system would be for everyone to make one decision to start, and that would be, do we include the group of 5 or not include the group of 5, and officially disband them to their own playoff or whatever they want to do. This teasing
we never included them.
This teasing of the group of 5 to include them in the ranking, that they shouldn't even be included in the rankings if they're not going to be considered for the playoff. It's like a tease, and it's a farce to include them and say UCF's number 7, they're 13-0, they're number 7. Okay, fine. They're never going to get to a playoff. This has already been proven a number of times that an undefeated group of 5 team is not going to get to the playoff. Therefore, why go through the exercise of ranking them? So either let them battle it out for one position in the playoff, or tell them, we are not including you. This is a Power 5 playoff. Go play your own playoff if you'd like to. Make a decision, one way or the other. Are they in or are they not? They're kind of in. They're given consideration, but it's a farce. They're really not. It's a pretend smoke and mirrors consideration. Make a decision. So that's the first point that needs to be made. Make a decision on the group of 5. If the group of 5's included, if you really want to expand the playoff and make it fair, then you would go to 16 teams, because you would need to include all the conference champions. A more reasonable system would be to go to 8 teams, and if you include the group of 5, much like we do with the New Year's 6 currently, we award the best of the group of 5 teams with a position. Then we have 5 conference champions, and we have 2 wild cards from the Power 5.
Let me ask you guys, do you think all conferences are created equal?
No.
Do you think that we should go by that assumption?
Not all.
Because you're a conference champion.
Not all divisions in the NBA are created equal. Not all divisions in Major League Baseball. Not all divisions in the NFL. But people don't stand around at the end of the NFL season and say, you know what, the AFC West sucks this year. We're not going to let any of those teams in. Let's grab another couple teams from the AFC South. No, there's a reason we play. But it's still competition. It's still an objective process to determine the best team with equal representation across the board. And even in that case, there's even more defense for selecting teams, multiple teams from one division and discarding one division, because they all play each other in the NFL. So it's more reasonable and more logical to be able to select who's better than whom. Can we really go to the Pac-12 and say, you're not good enough this year? We don't have any data to go on. We have very little data to go on. What we had to go on last year was that Washington lost to Auburn in a game that went down to the final second of the game. That's the only data we had to go on, and we're making a determination that the Pac-12 shouldn't be in the playoff. And it's not like I thought that the Pac-12 champion was one of the 4 best teams in the country.
Washington had 3 losses.
But there should be, in its own conference. So we should have representation from all the conferences, or we shouldn't play conferences. Tear up the conferences and just list all the teams 1 through 130. And when you open,
isn't that more subjective?
When you open whatever website, you wouldn't have any conferences. We just list all the teams 1 through 130, and we give them a random schedule. We give everybody a random schedule, and we tear up all the rivalries and everything that's near and dear to college football and the regionalization and aspect of college football. And everybody plays whoever they're going to play, give them a random schedule that equals a 500 record from the previous season. So it's an equitable schedule, and just everybody is on one big list, 1 through 130.
Yeah, that's true. I personally don't like that idea.
Well, I don't like it either. It's stupid. But that's as stupid as saying we're not including certain conferences in a playoff.
But let me ask you this. Do you enjoy college football more now, or I guess 20, 30 years ago? the system was different.
Well, I'm an adult that has a lot of responsibilities beyond watching college football. So no, I don't enjoy watching college. I love college football, but my degree of care or worry or concern over who wins and who loses is minuscule compared to what it was 20 or 30 years ago. I lived and died with these games 20 or 30 years ago. My goodness. If you were sitting here talking to me 20 or 30 years ago, I'd still be upset about Ohio State losing to Purdue 15 months ago. I didn't care about that game 3 hours after it was played.
But you're still an Ohio State fan, right?
Absolutely, I am. I'm a diehard, huge Ohio State fan, but just the significance of it in life has deteriorated for me exponentially. So I enjoyed college football much more.
You do a lot of your analysis as a neutral, is what I
Absolutely.
I guess you still love the sport.
And I'm definitely more capable of doing that at my age today than I would have been 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I guess you must be the last point I want to make.
Sure.
I'm very excited about Ohio State this year. Do you think they're national championship favorites, or do you think that's LSU?
I think LSU is the best resume in the country. I think Ohio State has the best team in the country.
So you must be ecstatic right now.
Well, that's the reason why I rank LSU number one, is because I like to base it on the results on the field. And I think that they've played the best and have the best results against the best schedule of the teams that need to be considered. But I think Ohio State is the best team.
Put out a stat that said that Ohio State has more ranked wins. I don't know if you looked at that or anything, but Ohio State's beaten more ranked teams. You could argue that LSU has beaten better teams, but it's kind of tough. Man.
So Deeper Rot, I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking about strength of schedule. Consider this: if you were going to play a 2-game season, would you rather play? There are 130 FBS teams. Would you rather play the 65th and 66th best teams in the country? Or would you rather play the best team in the country and the worst team in the country?
Probably the 65th.
Okay, because you're playing pretty bad teams. You're going to go out there and you're going to play Houston and whoever, Illinois.
Didn't Ohio State's beaten some really good teams this year. They beat Penn State.
So this is the point I'm making, is that the point that I'm making is when you start talking about ranked wins, it's similar to talking about strength of schedule. The strength of the schedule of a team that's playing the best team in the country, let's say you are Texas, and we're going to give you this schedule choice. Houston and Illinois, I'm just throwing those teams out there, and they're the 65th and 66th best teams in the country. Or you can play Ohio State and Rice. Well, you would choose Illinois and Houston because you can beat both of those teams because you're about the 30th best team in the country, so you should be able to beat the 65th and 66th best teams. But if you got to play Ohio State and Rice, well, in case scenario 1, you're going to go 2-0. In the second case scenario, you're most likely going to go 1-1. So you would choose the first schedule, but the strength of schedule is exactly the same. That's the fallacy in the measurement of the strength of the schedule, similar to ranked wins. Ohio State has some ranked wins that are at the bottom of the ranked list, like a Cincinnati, where LSU has played Alabama, Auburn, Florida. They've played the upper half of the top 10. They've played teams that are ranked between like 7 and 11.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. I mean, Ohio State, man, I think they have the best resume. I think beating Penn State, I think beating Michigan at the Big House, then beating Wisconsin twice if they do beat them. And I believe, they didn't play Minnesota, but they played some pretty good teams at the time. I guess Michigan State's not ranked either anymore. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think it's going to be all settled on the football team, or football field anyway. I think Ohio State and LSU are going to play the national championship game. I think that's my outlook from here on out. And I wouldn't write off Clemson. I think Clemson could surprise LSU or Ohio State, whoever they play in the semifinal, because we don't know how good Clemson is. I mean, they could be really good or they could be really bad, right? Kind of judging them off the North Carolina game.
Sure. I have little doubt that Clemson's one of the best teams in the country and will acquit itself very well in the playoffs. Whether it wins or not is another
How do you
matter.
feel about Dabo?
What do I
Dabo
think about him?
Rant. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. The rant.
I posted a video on the
conference.
rant, so I'm not going to respond anymore on that. I've been talking about that forever. All right, Deeper Rod, thanks so much for the call.
Yes, pleasure. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
What I intended to do when I got on here was address some of the videos that I had posted earlier, which just gained all sorts of crazy numbers of comments for my channel. There was a Michigan video that we posted that I made a misidentification on, so I have pulled that video down for right now. But we had 13,000 views, and I don't know how many comments on that because it's not being shown right now. But I posted a video on the state of Miami football that currently has 239 comments, and I responded to Dabo Swinney's comments after the South Carolina game. That's got 457 comments. My top 25 that actually makes sense with 114 comments. Another video concerning the Dabo comments when we brought on a Pigskin Pete that's got 233 comments. And so I wanted to respond to some of those videos and the comments that you brought to the table, which I very much appreciate. But considering we've been on for 90 minutes, I guess I won't be able to get to those. Maybe tomorrow night, maybe Friday, we will respond to the comments that you left in the comments section to those videos in particular. I need to do a little bit better job of posting a video. My goal would be to post a video once a week in which I would respond to the best comments for the week. What do we have here? Ridiculous. Might I suggest you starting a Discord server, Mark, for better conversations? You'll have to clarify exactly what you mean there, ridiculous. Right. Anything else I need to respond to? Again, Vernon Speaks Sports and Nice Guy TV, thank you so much for the super chat contributions. Clemson alum 98 was concerned about the way he was being treated in the chat room, and I don't see anything here that would warrant any concern from me. Hopefully I've not missed anything. JT Thompson, Mark, while you were immersed in the conversation with McD and Barat, we entertained ourselves. Well, I expect you guys to entertain yourselves. The conversation in the live chat is certainly much more interesting than what we do on the phone. All right.
The call will start at the beep.
Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's George.
Hey, George. It looks like McD asked you to call, or J Jobs asked you to call.
I was going to just say I had to call because some guy in the chat asked me to call. I have no idea what you wanted. Why did he tell me to call? What do you want?
You're never at a loss for words, George. You'll be able to tell me something.
Like, oh my God, Mark needs something. I better call him.
Dead air, George. Help me out.
You know what I'm doing?
What'd you call for?
You know what I'm doing? You know what I'm doing?
What are you doing?
I'm hand rolling an American Spirit organic tobacco cigarette. For like the last 15 years, I just buy this organic tobacco and I roll my own cigarettes.
Amazing. Is that difficult to do?
You got to do this. For as little as $50,000 a year, I could teach you how to do this.
Just $50,000 a year. Pocket change.
I'm just saying the players should get paid.
I mean, the coach don't pay no coach. I'm going to make a law. No coach can make over $1 million a year. If you don't want to coach football, go work at a bowling alley. I don't care. $7 million a year, $10 million a year, and the players get zero. I have an idea. Split this $6 million up amongst the players and give him $1 million. I'm tired of this, and don't talk to me about the rowing team either.
My viewpoint on players being paid in college is pretty simple. They receive a scholarship that is worth a whole bunch of money, and anybody who has had to deal with student loans or had to work through college understands that, number one. Secondly, we do have an issue with players who do receive scholarships, but they are basically working a full-time job or more than a full-time job as being a major college athlete. Therefore, they need to have their meals taken care of in addition to that, and a little bit of spending money, especially if they come from an impoverished background, as many of them do. So I do believe that they should be paid as some type of stipend in addition to the college education.
I agree, except for one thing. Collectively, this is it's almost $1 trillion business. If you count the gambling, it's $1 trillion business, not billion, trillion. Now, give the kids their $3,000 a week while they're young, and they can enjoy it. And they can go buy a car and eat out and do what they want. This is ridiculous. They're going to get a head injury. Some might break their necks or their legs. They got to get up at 6 every morning. It's the most brutal existence you can imagine. Were you ever an athlete, even for a minute, Mark? I think you were.
I played high school football and baseball.
It's brutal if you're serious about it.
Yeah. Well, and there's no comparison between high school and college, obviously, especially at the...
I'm going to unionize the players. Forget it. Let them keep doing what they're doing. I'm going to unionize the players, and we're all going to fucking sit out for a season.
Well, of course, you're not going to do that, George. So don't get on here and tell us that you're going to do it. If you're going to say that you're going to do it, please go out and do it. Then they'll give me something to talk about.
With you backing me, I think.
With me backing you. No, I'll simply have you on here as a guest, and we'll talk about it.
Well, it's already gone out on the airwaves. I think they heard me. They better fix it before I get involved. And be like Jimmy Hoffa all over again.
So we just concluded the regular season, and we're staring right at championship weekend, and you're bringing up paying the players. We can talk about that in May.
You're right. Let's talk about Georgia for a minute.
Okay.
All right. I've never, ever cheered for Georgia again. I think you've seen my comments.
Yes.
I'm back in Georgia. I'll give anything. Let Georgia beat LSU. That's 2 teams in the Final Four. That's pretty cool right off the bat. Good for recruiting. And then they get to play them again. The rematch. That's a good setup. You know Hollywood loves that.
Well, you want the SEC to look good. You want the SEC to look good, so you want 2 teams in there.
I think LSU would beat Ohio State, and I think Georgia would beat Clemson. That's fair enough. That's possible.
Absolutely, it's possible.
All we need is for Georgia to beat LSU. That's the part that seems hard. So I think Georgia can do it. They got 22 5-stars. They got depth. They got backup running backs. They got receivers that can catch ball. We can do this.
I would not be shocked if Georgia beat LSU. It seems like a lot of people give Georgia no chance against that LSU offense, but I do.
You know what's so good, Mark? The best case scenario is they beat them by 1 or 3, and that guarantees they're both in the playoffs. You know, don't beat LSU by 30. Beat them by 1 point or 3. That demands they both go in. You follow me?
Well, for as much as I'd like to see chaos, and I root for that every year because I want to debunk the system, I don't want to see that because I don't want to see 2 SEC teams in the playoffs again. I do not want to see that.
All right. Well, if that doesn't happen, we got boring Utah in there.
I need representation from as many parts of the country and as many conferences as possible. That's what I want.
You want a junior varsity team in the playoffs.
Why does it have to be
Because
Utah?
They're just going to get smacked down. When's the last time one of them won something? Never. When's the last time Oregon or Stanford or anybody won anything ever?
What is anything? Define anything.
A national championship?
A national championship? Oregon has not won a national championship. They've been to the national championship game twice in the last 9 years.
And got embarrassed.
Once they did. The other time they almost beat an SEC team. They lost 22-19. Nobody remembers it. I remember it, George. I just gave you the score.
We just remember the beatdown. Oh, God. All right. Good luck, Ohio State. I don't mind. I swear to God, I don't care if Ohio State wins. If you can, more power to you. You got Justin Fields, and you got that Chase Young guy. And it's possible. I could be totally wrong. It could just be Ohio State rolls over everybody. So
I think we're actually going to have a good playoff this year. I don't think it's going to be like most of the playoffs have been, where we've seen a couple blowouts. I think we're going to have a good playoffs this year, as long as we, again, so while part of me wants to see Utah in the playoff, I don't think they're as good as the other teams either, George. So hint, hint, I'm backing you in that regard. I do not think Utah's on the same level as Ohio State, Clemson, and LSU. So the best playoff would be Clemson, LSU, Georgia, and Ohio State. That would be the best playoff.
Clemson's not getting any respect.
Oh, please, George, don't be Dabo Swinney's sideman.
I'm just saying, I personally, as a consumer of college football, I give them like no respect. They might win, I don't know, but they just haven't played anybody all year. How the hell do I know if they're any good or not? No one's sitting there thinking the Clemson's a juggernaut because who have they played?
I hear you.
God, it's not fair, man. It's like Bartholomew says, it's not fair.
All right, George, anything else for us?
Nah, that guy told me to call. I was thinking Mark needs to get some rest. Don't do this.
Yeah, I really do. 7 a.m. is going to come pretty quick, and I've got things to do. All right, George, thank you so much for the call. I appreciate all the comments as always, man. You have cemented your place as the number one commenter, not just in quantity, but in quality, in hilarity here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.
I love you more.
Thanks, George. Have a good night.
All right. See you later, man. Good night.
The incomparable George. Let me make it through the comments, and we will wrap this baby up. And my effort at responding to the comments on some of our videos from earlier this week, specifically the Clemson, Michigan, and Top 25 videos, and the Miami video as well, has been derailed. And I should know that once I open up the live chat. But that's a good thing that you guys call and take part. That's why we're here. Keep in mind that we are building a channel here where our goal is to bring the best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football. We don't hit our mark every day, but that's our effort. And as somebody once said, we will do better tomorrow. Right here on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and I'm going to be posting a video at some point. It may wait until the off season, where I'm going to outline for all of you how you can help us build this channel, how you can contribute in so many ways. There are about 48 different ways in which you can help us, and I appreciate people asking me that on almost a daily basis. Mark, how can we help? All right. If anybody has left any comments in which they would like me to respond to them, and they've left them in the live chat, please copy and paste them and leave them in the comment section of any of the videos. My attempt will be, and I may not do it via live stream, I may record a segment later this week on Thursday or Friday in which I respond to your comments on all those videos that I listed earlier. Keep in mind that I have already recorded previews on the Big Ten championship game from both sides, the Big 12 championship game, the Pac-12 championship game, the MAC championship game, the American Conference championship game, the SEC championship game, and the ACC championship game. And I'm still not done. I am looking for contributors to represent LSU, Virginia, and Utah, and Baylor. So if you know of any writers in particular that you respect and would like to hear from, leave their names in the comments section as well, and I will track those guys down to have them on to preview championship weekend. And of course, once we get the selections on Sunday, look out, because we'll be talking college football, and I will certainly have something to say, and we'll be responding to the final top 25 college football playoff rankings, and specifically 1 through 6, and we'll obviously give you a voice as well. Right here at the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers TV. We will see you guys very soon. Oh, Ohio State talk. Thursday night. That's tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. We've got Ohio State Buckeyes live tomorrow night, Thursday night at 7 o'clock. I will leave that in the notifications as well. Hopefully you can join us right back here at 7 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday night. J Jobs, I will do a live show for the final rankings. Absolutely. I don't know if you were around last college football season or previous college football seasons. I will have much to say about the final rankings. Believe me. NBA fan, thank you so much for the contribution. Hopefully you're still online to see this. NBA fan, I appreciate that you and others understand the vision, that if you part with $1 or $2 and do it consistently, let's say once a month, 16 plus thousand subscribers right here, 20,000 subscribers, including the other channels. We could do this full time, do it right, and do it to the nth degree. You cannot imagine if I had more time in my week, it would not just be more content, it would be better content, believe me. So again, thank you so much for the vision and showing value where it's worth. Thank you so much. I will get off the air. See you guys soon.